Nagi Jetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu So Gebe Shesan Dala Tendo So Uyon Sunge Nawa Tsedo So Tseji Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dejen Korlo Visu Leksyon Yila Sambe Dede Malupa Geme Lungi Drubra Jingi Lo Tsoni Sodan Dikdun Shabe Tse Dungi Namge Yinsu Lekshune Labchen Tsoni Yonsu Zobada Cherani Dun Chamra Jingi Lo Chancho Pargi Ninsen Tuguntu Niu Peme Siudru Lekshune Chancho Drube Gegen Kunsh Tungen Dela Drubra Jingil Dagi Lona Chela Chokpa Dan Chemin Samjur Ngemba Shiwad Chedan Timbe Dudun Malupa Bemel Hungi Drubra Jingilo Dorna Tingne Tsira Tamche Dan
older than him. While we were there, he told us that during the 60s, around the 60s, can't remember the exact age. In the first years the Tibetans arrived in India, at the very beginning, there was a huge meeting between Buddhists and Hinduists and Jainists, between several masters of the three traditions, not only to get to know each other, but also to discuss differences, similarities, and so on. One of the main debate points for which they couldn't find a solution at the end, after all, what really differentiates us? We all believe in karma. We all believe in the objective or nirvana of liberation. They call them in different ways, but it's the same belief. We all believe in reincarnation. What is the main difference between us? So this Lama came up with this idea, which was then, after all, accepted by all of them. They all shared their own opinion, but then all of them accepted this idea. Also, it is quite difficult to put together people who have different visions of the world. So this Lama said the Chinese tradition mainly put importance, emphasis on the external behavior of the body. Not sure if you ever seen a Jainist. They are the Jain monks are mainly naked, because they have a total non-attachment to the body and the image. So wherever they go and live, they live naked, of course, in warm countries. They walk with a piece of cloth in front of their mouth because they have put emphasis on non-physical violence, so not harming any kind of living being, for example, insects entering the mouth. They use a broom with very soft feathers, which they use to clean the floor before stepping forward, not to step on any kind of being, and many other rules towards for the external, the physical conduct. This is all connected also to the mind, of course. They have a very thorough spiritual tradition. So the Jain mainly put emphasis on the external, the physical behavior. Then, the word had a huge emphasis with mantras, the pronunciation, and the use of words. And then the last Buddhist puts particular emphasis on the mind. When we talk about ourselves, what I notice is that very often in the Buddhist tradition, we put emphasis on the mind. There's a positive side, which is the importance of being mindful on our own mental defilements, the main causes of our suffering. We need to change our internal conduct to be in harmony with the others, and so on. So there's a huge emphasis on the mind. But sometimes we have the tendency, we tend to ignore the external part, the physical behavior and the word. In main teachings, especially in the Tantra, we often hear body, speech and mind. When we say Pakyukye Kudan, Tagilu and so on, your word is my word, your body is my body, your mind is my mind. Please bless me so that they can become inseparable and of the same nature. But if the mind is the most important point, why don't we just focus on the mind? What happens is that word or conduct or physical conduct, it's not that they are not important. Every aspect of our existence is essentially important. Nothing happens on a level which doesn't have any consequence on the other levels. Everything we do has a domino effect. From the way I breathe, the way I eat, the way I sleep, the relations I have with other people, the way I interact with other people, my own conduct, sexual conduct, and so on. These are all aspects which naturally, as all other physical aspects, they have an effect on our way of being. So is our thoughts, emotions, contacts, words, everything which is part of our being has a reflection on everything else. One of the main challenges we have that many people try to overcome, many succeeded and found methods to overcome this challenge, is to be able to live in a healthy and harmonious way. After all, This is what we're trying to do. We were born in this body. It was given to us, or I'm not sure about this expression, but this body, as Shantideva said, this body, we say, my body, this is just a result of the egg and the sperm of our parents, is their body that somehow took care, grew in vertical, then in horizontal, and slowly developed. But what happens is, this body where we live in has many beautiful aspects, incredible aspects. For example, a child, a very small little child, can use the palate, his mouth, to distinguish foods he needs and types of food he doesn't need. A very, very small one, below 2 years old. The more we get older, then our palate, our mouth get accustomed. Do you think we can't really use it for its primary function? We just use it to generate pleasure. Nothing wrong with having pleasure, but if we cannot distinguish anymore what helps and doesn't help us, then we end up harming ourselves. A small child naturally has a cardiac coherence, which is the speed. The heart changes heartbeats constantly, slower, faster, and so on. When a child is very small, if we get an ECG, there is a harmonian line curve. The more we get older, grow up, depending on the thoughts, the emotion, the graphic is very spiky. It's not so harmonious anymore. And it's quite clear because there are these biofeedback machines which allow us to see in real time our hearts. And depending on our emotional and mental state, these graphics change, and then there are more studies focusing on the benefits of having this kind of coherency, consistency in our heartbeat. So when we have this incredible machine, which is our body, and the more we get older in our life, in our hands, we have a challenge, which is how to keep our body healthy, with a healthy mind and a healthy life, and how, therefore, to be part of this positive interdependence in the world we live in. This is also one of the main points. In front of this, there are many important aspects. One of the main fundamental aspects, before getting into more detail, is if we leave for a trip and we have clear mind which is our destination and also why we want to go, and we have an important reason, we have clarity on this, we have a great, something we need to do has a great value. On the way we will face difficulties. I've never seen anybody who didn't encounter obstacles. I think, for example, of Milarepa. This great meditator in Tibet, before becoming so, had a very difficult life. He was born in a quite wealthy family. He was well off. His father died when he was young. According to the law at that time in Tibet, when the man died, all the goods, the wealth were given to the closest relative until the child reached age. So his uncle took over the wealth, put his mother as a servant, and Milarepa as well, sleeping with animals and serving others. When he reached adulthood, he was kicked out. So Milarepa, his name at the time wasn't Milarepa, got really, really angry for being kicked out. Seeked revenge towards these people who misbehaved towards his family, so he took off looking for revenge and learned black magic from a master and put all his focus on that, and came back generating a huge storming, killing about 150 people for revenge. After having done that, he realized that revenge wasn't sweet. After all, he didn't feel better. His pain wasn't pacified. He couldn't find any more sense in his life and took off again. So, in brief, in a nutshell, what he achieved, he understood that he needed to follow a spiritual path, and he heard about Marpa master, and when he was there following this master, very much focused on this Dharma path, focused on willing to practice the Dharma, also to purify whatever he had done, then at that point he encountered lots of difficulties, obstacles. So Marpa, these masters, literally kicked him until, after a long process, a purification process, which Marpa helped him in, at a certain point, after many years, where he even tried to take his own life 3 times. This was the internal point where he was at. At a certain point, Marpa recognized him as his own child, and through this path he became one of the main meditators in the history of Tibet. So Milarepa had encountered many obstacles, even after all, when he achieved the state of a great meditator. He was still very poor. He was known for his green skin because he was just eating vegetables, greens. So what I want to say is that I've never met historically or people I met in real life who did not encounter obstacles, difficulties. This is part of our lives. So when we look at ourselves, thinking of our difficulties, we look at the others and look at the others. It's much easier. I think it's because from far away everyone looks okay. Everyone looks well off. But if you get closer, you find out it's not the same. We all in our life encounter challenges, difficulties. Key is not or have or not to have difficulties. The key is how do I deal with them? How do I grow up in front of this? And how do I manage not to carried away by these, but I manage to walk in this virtuous path and gradually improve myself as a person, and not only myself but also the world. the society. So essential is to have a clear objective. When we have an important objective, a clear direction, difficulties look small. As Lama Ganchen said, there are no problems, just small difficulties. What transforms a huge problem to a small difficulty, small or medium, is whether this is something in the middle of a greater objective path. So it is very important to have a direction where this life has meaning. It's one of the main steps we have to do in our spiritual path, which then is nurtured, taken care of, and never taken for granted. One of the main objectives we have is to be in harmony with ourselves and the others. Manage to live in a healthy, balanced way with ourselves and with the others. Good news is that the steps we do profoundly in this life continue after our death. When I think of myself and I observe myself, sometimes taking myself as an example, I observe that many factors, positive factors I have, many of these I have since I was a very, very small child. On one side, I say I rejoice. On the other side, I wonder what have I achieved in 42 years old. I see many small steps forward, but I see, for example, my patience is a virtue I had since I was a child, so this look merits from other previous lives. But good news is that what we manage to achieve profoundly, we take over to the next life. But the objective is to be in harmony with ourselves and the others. To do this, we need to overcome many challenges. One of the main challenges we have in our lives are Nyingyelen in Tibetan, means how our habits or conditions from a physical perspective, from oral and mental way, were made of habits. The more we repeat something, the more this becomes stronger. And we manage to create habits even with harmful things. When we repeat an unhealthy dynamic, this becomes a habit. And even if we recognize this harms us, it's easier to continue than to change this bad habit. The process of changing of a habit requires a huge effort. And here, there's something very important, which is I'll try to be kind, gentle in expressing this. We have a huge attachment towards our own well-being and pleasure feelings. Very often we give priority to the feeling of pleasure in a short-term rather than a long-term well-being. And this attachment towards short-term and the aversion towards suffering, still in the short term, very often leads us to choose something which we like rather than something which is good for us. When we are in a process of following a cure or changing our lifestyle, we struggle because there is a physical discomfort. Very often we really struggle to get about this. An example about something I lived recently, I joined a detox Ayurvedic process called Panchakarma. One of the first things I was asked, is it difficult? You have to throw up and you have diarrhea. Yes, of course, it is difficult. But what I noticed that it depends on the attitude we face this challenge. First time I ever had to follow a diet for my health, I asked myself, do I eat because I like it or because I need food? Answer I gave to myself, I eat because I need it. So if I need because I need it, do I need to eat what I like or what I actually need? And the day I realized that I needed to eat what was good for me, I eliminated the internal dynamic of not eating what harms me is really a torture. Poor me, I can't eat what I want. Why, poor me? This is good that I can't eat poison. Good on me that I stop eating poison, what harms me. When someone is sick, naturally is attracted by something harmful. This is a characteristic state of a lack of balance. So having clarity that what is harmful needs to be avoided. I like it, of course, but I do avoid it, and I'm benefiting myself. This is also a challenge. So to do this, we need to maintain a longer term vision beyond the today and here. Where am I going? So the essential message I wanted to share today is it is good to take care of our own mind, but also within the Buddhist teachings, the path to be able to take care of our mind is firstly you have to take care of your physical conduct, and then take care of your words, and then of your mental conduct. It's unthinkable to direct our mind without being able to direct our physical conduct, our way of interacting with other people physically. Starting from simple things. We all know about eating. When we talk about food, for example, there are techniques, very good techniques that Rinpoche followed, and I explained, for example, the attitude we eat, the way we eat. This makes a huge difference, eating mindfully. When we eat, we are feeding our body. Why do I feed my body? Because I need energy. Why? Because I need to develop myself. I need to be able to serve other people. The Dharma I want to practice, I want to improve myself, to be able to support other people around me. So this is an objective of why I'm eating. While eating then in the tantric vows, one of these is to practice the 4 types of generosity 6 times a day. How many times do we eat during the day without snacks? Usually 3. 3 times the act of eating, if it's used consciously, this is already a practice of generosity. Not in the sense that we need to share our food with others, of course, that's also as well. But how many beings do live with us in our body? Some for sure. It's said there are more microorganisms in the body of each of us than human beings in the whole planet. We say my body, but that's a huge amount of beings which do everything in our body. When we eat, there's a visualization where we imagine our bodies as good Buddha. When we eat, there's a digestive fire that enters in the central channel, then digests the food we're eating, separates the good from the not good part of the food. The good part is offered to Guru Buddha, which is at our heart. Guru Buddha experiments a blissful feeling, which we also experience. Then the rest of the food is distributed to all the other beings that live in our body. The food is given to all the beings that live in our body. They are satisfied, and from that feeding, they feel good. And with this, we create a positive interdependence so that these beings give us a healthy, strong body and mind. So this is also an act of love towards these beings, the generosity of giving materially, giving love. Then we can also recite or imagine something regarding the meaning of the Dharma, love, compassion, correct view of reality, giving the Dharma to these beings. So in this way, we also protect them from hunger. The 4 generosities are giving love, giving protection. This is something we can do at every meal, even when we snack. This is an awareness which changes the way we eat, the way we breathe. This is another one. I read recently that one of the main theories, which I find quite coherent, one of the factors that increase anxiety in our modern society is that we have changed the way we dress up, our outfits. In general, we choose clothes which are tightened on our wrists. So when we have a very tight cloth, our breath goes in the upper part of the body. So what really creates movement of the breath is the diaphragm. So the high breathing creates a faster thought. It relates more to the mental thoughts, more conceptual thoughts. A lower breathing, a profound one, brings a calmer mental state, brings more intuition. So just changing our breath changes our mental state. There are certain practices that allow a faster thinking with a higher and shorter breath. When we need to bring our mind to a more profound intuitive state, then we need to breathe with a lower and more profound breath. So if we breathe in a short and high way with a very fashionable shirt or clothes, then we end up generating a side effect generated by a certain way of breathing. So anxiety increases. So the way we eat, breathe, sleep, acquire information, we see, we listen, everything of our being has a huge power on our state. So good to take care of our mind, observe our mind, mental poisons, bodhicitta, six perfections, and so on. But until we have reached a certain level of inner stability, we also have to take care of the way we eat, what we eat, how we breathe, how we move around, how we sleep. So these are fundamental aspects. Not with the attitude of sacrificing ourselves. This is an honor to be able to take care of our own well-being, even as a way of serving and support others. Nothing exists within ourselves only. Everything has an impact on other people around us. Sometimes I see this attitude of saying if I take care of myself it's very selfish and what about the others? There's nothing happening in us without having an impact on other people. Look at when a person we interact with is in a joyful state, balance, well-being, we interact with that state as well, and we are influenced by that. When the person near us at work, in our family, is in an anxiety, fearful state, does this have an effect on us? Of course. Likewise, our state has an effect on other people. One of the main principles is that I need to feel good to give good. That doesn't mean I don't need to think just of myself, but gradually we need to eliminate this dual mental state where there's myself and then the others. I do something for myself or for the others. What I need to gradually learn to live in a more harmonious, healthy, balanced life. Living a healthy life on a physical, mental, social state is a challenge. A challenge we can win, and we're here for that. In this challenge, there's no moment where we're not playing. Today there's competition, then I rest, and tomorrow there's another one. This is a constant 24/7 process. Every moment is a working moment. It's the way I interact with someone, I think, I relax, I eat, and everything I do is part of this process. So when we read the text of meditation in the Buddhist meditation, the Vajrayogini practice, Yamantaka, Guhya Samaja, and many other important practices in the Vajrayana Buddhist, there are meditation techniques which are incredible. Always in the way it's described, the meditation way, the moment of meditation has the same level of importance of how you live in between meditations. What are the activities you live in between meditations? The way you speak, interact, work, rest, eat, move around, and things you do daily. So everything we do naturally interacts with the other parts. So let's have an omnicomprehensive attitude towards our life. Everything brings us in the same direction. So seeing life as a challenge is something I really like. Gives meaning to my life. And the challenge of living in a healthy way, starting from, as I said many times, one of the main steps in our path is to stop feeling a victim. Often we say, it is true, I'd like to live in this healthy life, but look at the world, look at the other person, look at this situation. If I had a partner in life, I would be happier and so on. If I didn't have that person, I could do this and that. If I didn't have to do this, and so on. Let's get rid of if. We're made of habits. If creating this excuse which don't allow us to do something becomes a habit itself. There's always an excuse after the other. There are three main aspects in our daily life. First one is usually more important. We need to get to the third one as being the most important. The first one is what I do. I wake up in the morning. What do I do today? We write down in our agenda, meetings, commitments, many things to be done. This is the first level. What do I do? I need to clean up, I need to study, write down, meditate, go to work. I'm on holidays, I need to visit beautiful things, have fun. What do I need to do? First level. Second one is how do I do it? Which attitude do I have doing what I do? The external one and the internal attitude. This is the subjective part. I'm doing this. How do I do that? Yesterday I was talking about this with the summer camp kids. This is a movie that only few of them have seen because I'm quite older than them. It's the Karate Kid movie. At the beginning of the Karate Kid movie, the first part of the training is waxing. Why does he have to wax so much? Because the window needs to be clean or because he has to be trained on something? What is he doing or how is he doing? What is more important? Is the how. That brings to the third level, which is not what, how, but how is this experience going to transform myself? I can do something which looks okay, but maybe transforms me in a not virtuous way. There are many people who are very successful professionally, but end up being burnout or feeling awful internally because they had to step over very important ethics, and afterwards they feel bad. So they have done something good, beautiful things, well done, but they just destroy themselves. So the question isn't what I do. This starts and ends quickly. It's not really how I do it, which is of course more important, but the experience, which is a sum of what and how is this going to transform myself? Even simple physical things. My grandpa died a few days ago. He died with 100 years and he still had all his teeth. He went to the hospital for an MRI and the doctor asked him to remove his teeth and he said, "What teeth? These are my real ones." The previous time in the hospital he got a little bit upset. He said, "Stop with these soups and soft food. Give me something I can crunch and chew." Our body, our way of being, there's an English way which is use it or lose it, also used in scientific environments, related mainly to the brain. Either you use it or you lose it. And if we don't use our capacities, our abilities, we slowly lose them, mental ones, physical ones, and so on. So the main question is not what, why I'm doing something, but how is this experience going to let me develop one side of myself rather than the other? For example, once I was in Brazil with a friend, with a young man. I was talking to him. He spent several years in the special forces, police forces. He received the whole hardest training, long periods in the forest where he had to overcome every kind of difficulties. He said, with everything I struggle with, sometimes I end up finishing my work. In the evening, I leave 25 minutes from work. After everything I've been through, even if it rains, I just walk back home. After all I've been through, this is nothing. And here I just want to mention briefly Kyabche Trijan Dorje, the master of Lama Ganchen, said in his teaching, not fearing suffering helps us to suffer less. When we always fear suffering, we suffer more, just for the fear of suffering than for the suffering itself. Even the objects of stress are more mental than effective than real. Then also when we go through difficulties in life and we can overcome them, this makes us stronger. And the more we face more difficulties, they will be lighter. So when I'm facing a certain situation, is not really the situation itself, it's the way how I overcome it and how I develop my own qualities, how I transform in front of this adversity. There's a story of a boy bringing water to the monastery. I got to my master in Tibet, it was early in the morning. In Tibet, there was a situation I found strange because they have the habit in Tashilumbo where practices are done before dawn, and the time in the clock in Lhasa and Shigatse follows Beijing time, which is 2.5 hours forward. So between Beijing and Shigatse there are 2.5 hours difference, time zone. So the activities follow, let's say, the clock time. So they start puja at 5:30 a.m. when the sun rises at 8. So when they start pujas, it's still dark. So when I got there, early morning at 8 a.m., it was very early, sun was rising. This boy was carrying 25 liters on his shoulders. He got to the peak, to the 4th floor of the stairs. We were 4,000 meters, and he was quite tired. At that floor there was a terrace, and the abbot of the monastery, my master, they didn't have any running water. So every day they had to carry water, pour it in a huge container, and then pour it to drink it, cook, and so on. So I asked my master, in the court downstairs, there is a sink. Why don't we just bring it upstairs with a tube, with a pipe? That's so simple, easy. We bring a pipe and then we carry water upstairs. Even if you just use it twice a day, then you open and close it when you need it. At least in the abbot's house. These are houses built about 800 years ago, where I was receiving teachings. The master was sitting on a bed used for many, many generations. Furniture was the same as many, many years ago. So windows, walls were the same as centuries ago. I said, come on, let's just bring some water upstairs. So I asked my master, Genla, why can't we bring water there? And he gave me this answer. If young boys don't learn to have constant and put effort in very simple things like carrying water, how will they have constance and effort in more important things, more difficult things like meditation? So the boy wasn't just carrying water, he was training in effort and constance. This completely changes the perspective. In our mentality, we would say, poor boy, he's doing useless things. We would easily solve the problem with a pipe, so he doesn't have to go through this hassle every day. But he will struggle more in the future, because when he will be required to study, meditate in a certain way, he won't be trained to face that amount of effort. So when we do something, let's try to see it not only from a point of view of what we do, how we do it, but mainly how this will change, help us to change, not only related to ourselves, but also related to the relationship with other people. The way we face certain things, it's changing our relationship with this specific situation. So I invite you to have more awareness on the fact that the body is important, the way we eat, sleep is very important. Everything in this setting where there is what I do, how I do it, and how I transform myself by doing that. These days we'll have many occasions together. I'd like to remind you that in the next days, from the 3rd of July, tomorrow is the Long Life Puja, Lama Michel's Long Life Puja. Then we'll have the mandala of Yamantaka. I spoke with Geshe-la and the other monks. When we'll have the practice of the Yamantaka mandala, every day we'll have the sadhana of Yamantaka. Slowly, so who did the retreat and had initiation will be able to do the sadhana again every day. Then we'll have the mandala. Afterwards, 3 days of Rapnechimmo, which is very important, is a blessing which re-energizes ourselves, the objects, the holy objects, and the place. We'll explain this further into detail. So we'll do our dedications now.
Jetsu lame kutse rapten chi nam karatin le chokchur ge padang losan tempe dreme sasumge drove munsel taktu ne gyur chi kyewakuntu yanda lama dang dralme cheki pela longche ching sadan lamge yende rapzone Dorje changi kopanyur tob sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shing ninsen takto delek pe kuncho sumki chingi lob kuncho sumki ngodrubutso sumki trashi shun all'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno.
At dawn or dusk, at night.
Concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Buona giornata a tutti.
Have a good day.